Hello and welcome to what I have now named the Nugget bike, because I can't think of a more accurate name for this thing. The person who built it definitely went with the method of let's make it as sketchy as possible, because it is straight up sketchy. Like, I'm happy it doesn't run because no, it's bad. I'll go into detail in a moment about how bad it actually is, but to summarize, I got this one and I got another frame at the same time from the same person. I bought both of them from the same family who were the original owners. They're both Bonanzas, which are cool. And I bought both of them as a bundle deal. And for people who care about numbers, it was $200 for both of them. So whatever, 100 each or whatever, 150 and 50, doesn't matter. When I first did the other mini bike build, I didn't know anything about the market. I didn't realize that when they do sell, they sell like next day for a lot of money. And the only way I even got this one was because it was listed on the marketplace, but I only saw like the back quarter of it in the edge of a picture of some other bike that was for sale. Oh, I know exactly what that is. So I messaged them and I said, oh, I'll be there like tomorrow. So I went there, talked to them. They were super cool. Bought this on the spot, and then we were just talking and they're like, oh, I have another frame. I went back and looked at it, and it's another Bonanza frame. The plan right now, this is gonna be my mini bike. I'm gonna build it for myself. The other one, I don't know yet. Either way, they'll both get built, but the other one will just be on the camera some other time in the future. Right now, I just wanna ride the thing and enjoy it. So I'm gonna try to get this engine to work. If not, I have another 5-horse Honda to throw on it. You know, make it work, make it run, and enjoy it for a while. Because the engine I wanna actually put on it is a little bit hard to find, and it's gonna take me a while. So in the meantime, I'm not just having a not working mini bike sitting in storage. I'd rather have a running one that I can enjoy and have fun with while I hunt for the other engine. So yeah, we'll just dissect it real quick. I'll show you all the really bad things that I found, and then we can start working on a game plan for either getting this running or just swapping it entirely. The original frame is right here, and I would say it's probably like 3/4 inch diameter. And instead of just finding a grip that would fit that, they cut it and welded a smaller piece on, and then one didn't coat the weld, and then two just put this crappy grip on this now smaller pipe. So that's terrible. Like, that required more work than going on eBay and finding a grip that would work. And also, this thing like barely works. Like, you can hear it's connected, but you probably only get 1/4 of the throttle throw. Like, can I even yank this thing? No. Like, I'll break the cable if I yank on that too hard. So yeah, this is all terrible. However, it's not the worst defense on this bike. So you can kind of see the remnants of it right here, but that's where the foot peg used to be, and it's just 2 ears where the foot peg goes through it and then a bolt goes through that. But that broke off, so they just left it there. And since you had access to a welder, why not just weld that tab back on? Nope, just leave it there and then weld these on, which look like this 2 halves of a jack handle that they cut up and then welded it on there and left them yellow and also didn't coat the welds. So that's cool. This isn't their fault at all, but the engine came off a wood chipper. For whatever reason, the crankshaft is a tapered style and also is a 7/8 diameter, which is super uncommon. Like, it was common back in the day of 70s. That means there's like no aftermarket support for clutches. So I don't know. He said it runs, which it spins over, I think. I don't even know. Yeah, and it has like no compression. Oh, there it is. I was about to say, if that was all the compression it had, that thing's already shot. He said the only way to kill the engine is to suffocate it. So clearly the kill switch isn't working or the carb isn't set up. I have no idea. But instead of solving the issues, he just decided to ignore them. That's a thing to contend with. But again, not the worst part of the bike. This is the worst section of the bike. This has the most consolidated shit than anywhere else on the bike combined. Starting off, wiring. Where's the other wire at? There's 2 wires here. They do nothing. I don't know what they do. They just hang out here and loiter. I don't understand. I don't know if these are supposed to be connected. Like, one goes to a ground. No, now it doesn't. Like, I don't know what's happening here. Then there's a kill switch right here, which is supposed to be on the handlebar, but it's now attached to the air filter housing. The throttle is gone, which I understand. I don't know. I don't understand this. This is psychotic. In order to contend with the fact that the engine spins clockwise, but the crankshaft is on the left-hand side, they put a jack shaft in, which makes sense, right? However, the frame allows you to flip the wheel over so that the sprocket is on the other side. There's already holes there. Like, everything is designed to be flipped. So instead of doing any of this, they could have just flipped the wheel over. Like, why? The thing that pisses me off the most was this is the brake here. It's a regular little drum brake. There's supposed to be a linkage that goes from here to a little brake jack shaft, which then goes to the other side, and then that has a little foot pedal, which is really cool. Like, I wish I still had that. But instead they cut all that off and put this shit here. I don't have the original parts anymore, so I can't recreate that. So this shit made that go away forever. And now I have to cut all this off and try to not damage the frame in the process. So it looks like he used 3/16 plate, which is way too much. This is the only bolt holding both pillow blocks in. The rest of it is just giant welds. There's one big old weld along here. There's tack welds all the way around. There's a giant weld on the bottom. There's just shit everywhere. And again, none of it's coated with paint, so it's all rusted. They cut out a slot for the chain instead of, figuring out spacing. Look how much resistance there is to moving this. And you can see here, everything is tack welded. So the axle's tack welded to the pillow block, which is tack welded to the sprocket, which is tack welded to the other pillow block. Even though the center sprocket has a lock collar, actually this pillow block has a lock collar, that one doesn't. So I don't understand what's happening here. This is the sketchiest shit I've ever seen. And on top of that, he even tried welding the engine to the engine plate, even though the engine is aluminum and the plate is steel. So you can see how that went. There are 4 bolts holding the engine in, which is actually good considering my track record. But 2 of them are entirely loose. Like there's a nut on them, but the nut's there for moral support more than anything else. It does nothing. The next step I think is probably figure out what's going on with the carb situation and also the kill switch situation, because this is obviously not working. I don't even have to test it to know it doesn't work. For now, I'm just gonna pop this cover off, see what is going on here, and probably throw most of that away. So kill switch, right? Mount it to the air filter cover. Nope, goes nowhere, does nothing. I'm assuming this goes to the coil, and I'm assuming you were supposed to touch these 2 wires together to ground them. See how much these are spaced out? Look how much space is there. This thing's like half attached. Is that even thread in? Do you want to take bets off that this is stripped out? Oh yes it is. Oh yeah, there's like no threads left. That's cool. Just ruin everything, why don't you? So I'm not sure how well you can see it, but back here, the throttle cable comes in. There's this twisted up piece of metal that is hose clamped to the cable itself, and that's what holds it in place. Then there's one lock nut, and the other lock nut just hangs out here. Oh, is that a staple? No shit, that's a bent staple. The throttle cable's held in with a bent staple. Well, it works, I guess. Well, does it work? Hold on. Oh yeah. Look at that. That's a total of like 0% throttle. Literally, the only way to make this work is to throw all of it away. So yeah, that's all. Just mint. Pretty easy fixes. Just got the threads cleaned up. Just ran a tap through them. Also discovered that the previous owner, in all their wisdom, didn't have a gasket between the air filter and the carb. So got one of those. They're just like generic ones. You run these bolts all the way down. So not only was it run in a way that there was a big old gap between this adapter and the carb, but also there's no gasket. So now there's a gasket, and also I can tighten it down fully. And also figure out this wiring. All I'm gonna do is just run a switch from here back to the ground. They had there should be a switch here, but instead they had 2 spade connectors, since I guess they couldn't be bothered to run to the hardware store and buy a switch. So gonna slap this all back together, and then we can start checking the oil, gas, spark plug, all that, and then see if this engine will run. Now that's what I call the domino effect. So all I wanted to do was fix the wiring, but it was too short to put a new connector on it, so I needed access to it. In order to get access to it, I need to take the side cover off. In order to take the side cover off, I had to take the gas tank off. And once the side cover was off, I found that the coil was super rusted, at least the contact points with the magneto, and the magneto was also terribly bad. I was gonna clean those up, and then while I was cleaning those up, I realized the fuel line was crap. So in order to get the fuel line off, you have to take the flywheel off. So here's where we're at, all because I have to do wiring. That's the face of the magneto. This is after sanded and filing. It's so heavily pitted, I don't understand how it worked at all. That is terrible. Okay, it's all back together. Got the kill switch mounted and wired. Got a new fuel line. Drained the fuel tank, obviously, since I took it off. The fuel that was in was probably still good, but it started to stink like varnish, so I just didn't want to push it. I got a new spark plug. It had a old Champion in it, and I cross-referenced it to a modern NGK, so not too bad. We're just gonna fire it, let it warm up a little bit, and then change the oil out of it, because it does have oil in it, but I don't know what the condition is. A couple other things, I messed with the throttle cable just to get more throw out of it. We've probably got about half throw right now. So yeah, I'm just gonna get set up with the door open, and we can see if we can get it to start. Okay, so you may notice the bike's clean now. I warmed it up and then I degreased it and scrubbed everything with Scotch-Brite. And the bike runs pretty good. It stumbles a little bit, like when you give it too much throttle too quickly. But as of right now, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drain the oil out of it, put some fresh stuff in it, and then make a shopping list of what I need to order in order to get this thing to run. I don't think this engine's gonna stay on here because, like I said, that 7/8 crank is really obscure and it's hard to find parts, and I really don't feel like it's necessary to go buy a new old stock clutch and put that on there. I don't know, we'll just play it by ear, but for now I'm just gonna drain the oil. I mean, that's about what you expect. There's no hint of the Marvel in it. Which, again, I don't really expect because I honestly didn't put that much in it. I expected this oil to be pretty bad, and it is. I don't see metallic in it though, but I can't. There's a little bit of metallic in it, but not too bad. I'm not super worried about it. While that oil is draining out, I figured it would be a good opportunity to just explain my vision for the bike. So like I said before, right now it's just going to be a matter of getting it running and driving and being safe while I hunt for the new engine that I plan to put on it. And as far as the engine I'm going to put on it, I'm thinking somewhere between like 80 and 125 two-stroke dirt bike engine. And I really don't want a clone engine because a lot of them are all flat, like where the cylinder and the transmission are all in one line. That makes them really long. So like if you look at any typical like 125 clone engine, they're all super long and I really don't have space for that. So I'd like to find one where the cylinder is perpendicular to the case. That way it makes it much more compact. So maybe like a CF 100 or like an RT 100 or something like just along those lines of like 100cc or so two-stroke dirt bike engine. That's the goal for power plant. And then as far as cosmetics, I'm thinking like a really 70s, like a heavy metallic blue for the frame and some other components, and then chrome or whatever else for other stuff. That way it's like showy, but also like period correct gaudiness. So as you can tell, the bike is a lot more taken apart than it was previously. The original engine is out, the rear wheel is off, the sprocket and brake drum are off. I'm just trying to figure out what my options are, and the end result is I can't use this engine. I can move it further right than it was previously, but it still doesn't give me enough space to just run a clutch right to the wheel. I have to use the jack shaft, which I don't want to. Then on top of that, that engine is a 7/8 crankshaft, which you cannot find clutches for anymore. Simple option is this will not work for it. So I have my Honda here, it works fine. It bolts up nicely. It's substantially smaller of an engine. Everything about this engine's better. Like it's the same power, well rather 5 and 5.5, but it's a smaller engine, smaller displacement, much better engineered, and overall it's just more compact and gives me more options for placement. So we're sticking with that. The only weird thing about it is the exhaust is facing forward. So I'm probably gonna pull that muffler off and see if I can find a flange to make an exhaust pipe to put it out the back. I don't really care for all this. It's kind of weird in this application, but for now it's fine, it'll work. Okay, so I've made a bit of progress, and also I'm going to be doing more off camera just because I don't feel like filming, but I'm going to cut the jack shaft off of the frame, cut what's left of the foot peg mounts off the frame, clean up the rust, and then coat the welds that the previous owner did as well as the welds I'm going to do. And I'm going to cut that crap that they did off of the handlebar where they welded in a section of 7/8 pipe, so that way they could use the twist throttle grip thing they had on hand. And I have 1-inch pipe here, so I already marked it. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this section out, cut that crap off that they put on, and then weld this piece onto that handlebar. That way it'll go back to being uniform. As far as the sprocket, brake, and rear rim go, I got everything cleaned up, soaked in rust neutralizer. Whoever installed this previously didn't use the right hardware because the hardware that was mounting the sprocket to the rim was interfering with the brake. So the brake was sitting way far out and wasn't really working, and that's probably why they didn't bother connecting it, because it didn't work very well. So I have all that figured out. So when it comes to time to reinstall, we won't have any issues with that and it'll actually work. I got a flange here, and I'm gonna make an exhaust system that's gonna do a 180 and go out the back, because obviously this is the front of the mini bike. You don't want exhaust just like blowing forward. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. So got the flange here, got this old exhaust pipe that I think I took off of a snowblower. I don't know. And we're gonna cut it all up, weld it, and make it to a 180, and then just out the back for now. On the carb side, I'm gonna remove most of this stuff. I don't really care for this gas tank and pulse pump setup. I think it's kind of unnecessary. I ordered a pod filter adapter like every Predator has. Luckily, since the Predators are clones of Hondas, that means most of the parts for Predators also fit Hondas. So I just ordered the generic pod filter kit. I can't install that since this is all gonna be here. I have another generic gas tank I'll put somewhere else, and then we can simplify all of this. Gonna get to cutting stuff up. and then I'll pick back up with the camera once I have progress to show. Lucky for me, the previous owner didn't know that you couldn't weld cast iron to steel and aluminum to steel, because I didn't have to even cut through the pillow block welds. They just broke when I hit them with a hammer. This side, I guess, was that side, and there's lots of little bits of flux core and stuff, like definitely not good welds. I think this was him practicing welding. This one sucked because you could even see the remnants of the old brake linkage assembly, which they just sawzalled off. I have to clean all this up now, which will take a while, but not a big deal. And also he put little tack welds here where the engine was. So I don't know if he tried to tack weld the engine to the engine plate, which again is aluminum to steel. I don't know, but thankfully he didn't understand how that stuff worked. So it made it easier to take it apart. But now I'm just gonna cut off the foot pegs. I have new tabs on the way, and I'm probably gonna move them up. Like I'm gonna cut these off eventually and cut these off now. And at some point in the future, I'm probably gonna put them like here, maybe up here. You need to have bendable pegs. That way, if you lay the thing down, you're not gonna die, because this isn't gonna dig into the ground. It'll just fold up. So as a safety thing, and also these look like crap, I'm gonna cut these off eventually too. All right, everything's in mock-up at this point, just because I'm missing a lot of components and I don't want to put anything in its fixed location until I know how much space I have to work with. And some of the old parts that I have to use are damaged, so I have to find replacements, including this axle and also the chain adjusters, all of which have damaged threads. And the chain adjusters have damaged threads and are also bent, but I've never seen them not bent. So I guess that's not even surprising at this point. Speaking of the frame rails, I have them all ground down. These rear ones are so messed up. Like I'm gonna have to put weld in to fill it back in, or use like Bondo, which I really don't want to do that. But they're so messed up. But I got the footrests off, which were pretty easy. And then I just cleaned up everything, put a coat of primer on it just to protect it from rusting more. And also the handlebar's done. I still need to grind down the weld more. Well, I think I actually need to add more weld, because I didn't realize how much they had ground down the old pipe, the remaining bit, because it's no longer 1-inch diameter where I welded it to. So I need to basically add in filler material and then grind it all back to make it all nice and smooth again. But it's on and it looks fine, and I measured it and it's equal, same angle and all that. So only I will know that it's not original. But in any case, I'm gonna start working on the exhaust. Okay, so I got this flange welded to this section of pipe, got the pipe angled and cleaned up, ready for weld. So now it's just a matter of cutting up this piece, which I'm thinking I'm gonna take about 1 inch out of it. That way it'll tuck in about there. What I'll do is I'll trim this, get it cleaned up, get it mocked up, tacked, take it back off, weld it on the ground, and then see where we're gonna go from here. I have more just straight 1-inch exhaust tubing, so I'll just probably do another foot or two. Once it's done, I'm gonna go ahead and paint it, and then I need to flatten this flange. I put way too much heat into it. Obviously, I'm bad at welding. As a result of that, I put way too much heat in it, so I need to flatten it out because it's clearly not gonna seal. And also I need to find a gasket that'll work for that. Either way, small things. So last section, it's gonna go approximately there. That way it continues going upward and also inward a little bit. That way when I put a muffler on it, it's not just pointed right at the frame. Okay, so I'm making progress. I'm really happy with it so far. Obviously the paint on the header needs to cure, and I still touched it anyway, so now it's on my fingers forever. But it's up and where it needs to be. I need to order a muffler. I didn't do that, but that'll be good once it's done. I've ordered pretty much everything else, so once that stuff comes in, it'll be simply a matter of like bolting it on and also maybe some fine tuning to make it work. And then other than that, the only issue I haven't figured out yet is the brakes. So we have drums and they will work. I just have to find a way to activate them. And the weirdest thing is that it's a little spline shaft like most dirt bikes are, but I don't know what spline count that is or what size or anything like that. So I can't really find an arm to mount onto it. And I don't have one on hand that will work. So that's the only really big variable at this point. Okay, I got the filter kit in, and it's gonna require a bit of modification, obviously, because this is for the clone engines. Specifically, I need to cut this adapter right where these marks are. I don't know if you can really see it. It's basically just cut a big groove out of it to accommodate for the choke. And then I need to cut up the stock lever because the only thing I really need is this little arm for the choke. So I need to cut the rest of it off. Okay, just gonna try to fire it up real quick. Got a gas tank run up all temporarily. Got the filter on. Everything should be good. So let's give it a shot real quick. Good enough. Okay, so it runs, however, not very well, and it is pretty loud. It sounds good, but it's loud, so it definitely needs a muffler, which I've already ordered and is on the way. But for the sake of not making this video over 25 minutes long and boring the crap out of you guys, we're going to do this in 2 parts. So this one is just a matter of dissecting it, getting it cleaned up and partially done, and the next episode will be a matter of slapping on all the parts, which there are a lot on the way. So yeah, with all that being said, thanks for watching and stay tuned.